And we are live. Uh, hey Karthik, hey Sanjeev. I think we've been in the Slack group for a very long time. It's great to. We haven't spoken a lot. And you've spoken twice before this, but not really face to face a lot. So it's great to have you guys.
Same here,
Nice.
Ishan.
Thanks for having us, Ishan. Nice to meet you as well. I guess lots more to talk, and hopefully we'll cover parts of it today.
Yeah, I love telling this. This is one of my favorite stories of how I met you and what happened on the first time, right? So I'll just reshare that and then we can get right into the topic. So
Uh,
I remember this you like the way we met. It was a sales call where you had scheduled a call with us to consider working with us for your SEO. And then during the call, I was like, okay, I was listening about the product, and those were problems that I was facing myself, and it was pretty easy to install. So while I think you were telling me, hey, this is what the product does, and all of that, I installed the product, started using it, and till date, I use Luru for all of our sales calls. That's how Udayan, who's had sales experience before me, he's like, dude, you just never update HubSpot. And since then, I think because of Luru, he's gotten a little. It's a little better at our end. So yeah, like that's how I got introduced to the company, to you folks, and then yeah, like I had to reach out, and more than the sale, I wanted to like just partner with you guys and share that.
no, that thanks
Nice
for
to hear
sharing.
that, Ishan.
Lovely story. Yeah. So that's the idea, right? So we hope folks will get to know us and start using, and then realize that it's a much better way to work with your sales stack using Luru.
Yeah, I mean, how it's like, can we quickly go over introductions for both Karthik and Sanjeev yourselves?
Sure. I'll
Right.
probably go first. Yeah. So I'm Karthik, co-founder of Luru. We started Luru sometime mid last year.
Mhm.
Prior to that, I used to be the CRO at Exotel. So that was a very long stint uh, into the world of startups, so to speak. So I joined Exotel in 2011, and it was a 9.5 year journey. Saw a lot of different aspects of building a company and a startup. Started off doing product, then moved into operations, and for the longest time, I was managing top line and sales. So that was my career arc. And prior to that, I was mostly a product manager. So that tech and a product manager. So that's my quick background.
Awesome.
Okay,
So
I'll
Sanjeev,
go next. So
yeah.
I'm Sanjay, co-founder of Luru. Similar career arc to Karthik in the sense, did multiple roles prior to Luru at Exotel. So started my career as an engineer. I was an operating system engineer at Cisco for a long while, and then I moved to Luru as an engineer, and I headed marketing. Very serendipitous, say work that I did. I never thought I would do marketing. That was my longest stint as a role. Then I went on to head products at Exodus before we started Luru. So wore multiple hats. So from an engineer, the marketing journey and the product journey was interesting.
Wow. I
Yeah.
think so. That's really interesting. I rarely see multiple people like both the co-founders having experience across functions. That's still very rare, at least based on what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, but in fact, one of our other co-founders, Anand, was a CFO at Exodal. Now he completely takes care of tech. So it's it's a very interesting set of folks.
Yeah, that's that. I'll ask you some other day, like how did that happen? But I think let's just jump right into it, right? So like
Yeah.
marketing feedback loops, uh, getting that data from sales, right? Sales, getting the data to marketing. I always knew, and I think every marketer knows it's important. Right? It's like there's no marketer who said, "Oh, I don't want to listen to it," or and then there's a lot of us, and I'm saying us because I also thought, "Oh no, I do. I use that data, right? I really say that. Okay, no, I use that data, right? But then I think when I started after I started Spear Growth, I started doing a lot more sales. So I do a lot of all the sales at our agency, and then I started realizing, oh, like the amount of information that I have, there is no way like the marketing team can ever even have that. So if we are ever creating an ad campaign, a lot of that, and since we're a smaller team, right, it's very easy for me to say that, oh, let's sort of do it like this. And then a huge part of why that works is because of the information and the customer feedback I have collected during my sales calls. Um, we're doing a repositioning right now. That's was the basis of our repositioning. So, but like how? So, okay, is does the feedback loop end when you if the sales team puts data in the CRM, marketing go read it? Is that like the summary of the entire session, and what are we sort of adding to it essentially?
So I'll just take a quick stab at it, right? So in an ideal world, that will be the end of what we are getting at, right? But it doesn't work that way, right? So uh, typically, the pitch that you need to give to a customer, whether whatever the touch point, whether it is a marketing touch point where an ad is being served, or some kind of a landing page, for example, or any other types of material out there, they need to resonate with the customer. And uh, marketers typically don't have first hand experience of what is the language of the customer, what exactly is the pain point, what are they thinking, how are they thinking. Those kinds of things typically tend to come from sales calls and one-on-one interaction, which is what typically your sales reps will do with the customers, right? So the notes from that will give a sense of, for example, what is the language that they are using, right? So what your ICP is calling something XYZ, maybe you're thinking about it as ABC, right? So but just changing that language to XYZ may end up being a much better ad campaign, right? So which will resonate better. So those are the kind of things that will happen, right? So yes, it is something that the marketing team again has to look at, so that they can do their own campaigns and jobs better. But it's not as simple as that, because data has to kind of flow through a lot of funnels before it can be crystallized into an insight like this, right? So yeah, so Sanjeeth, probably you can add to this.
Yeah, see, historically, we've always looked at marketing like a funnel. Though we talk about it as a flywheel, is how we should look at it. The customer is in the center, and marketing, sales, everything works around it. But rarely do we operate in that, right? There is always a marketing, then the sales, then CS, etc., or the delivery team. So I think we are wired that way to look at it as a funnel, and so data always flows in one way. So even if it's interesting. Karthik and I are at almost the same table. For many years, we were at like opposite end of the table, because I used to be CMO. He was head of sales. I will argue saying there is no data in the CRM. He will say that it's not useful anyway, right? Like, but then we kind of figured out ways in which we could get to a place where extremely valuable, right? Like data both ways was extremely valuable. So one of the things that we used to mandate is marketing team actually should listen to sales calls. It was a very simple say procedure as part of induction process. Anybody in marketing joins the team, they would be asked to either shadow a sales engineer or listen to a sales recording. So what happened was this was like as close as a marketer can actually get to the field, right? Like otherwise we are just talking about very high level strategy. Things change tactically also. Simplest examples was that actually helped our SEO performance, because we come from a very inside out view of what is the product we are selling. So when you listen to calls, you suddenly realize that's not the terminology that they are using. They use completely different terminologies. That's what they are searching for, and we started optimizing on that. So that feedback loop happened when marketers actually started listening to calls or shadowed sales folks.
I had a follow-up question. I think first for Karthik, right? You said that, and just want to understand this, right? Because I think every marketer, when you were talking about that, hey, marketers don't have, and you use the word, haven't experienced the pain points. I want to understand, like, what do you mean by that? Because I think every marketer says, oh, these are the benefits, these are the problems. I think every half decent marketing team has a sheet that has those line items.
Right.
So what does that like experience? I just want you to elaborate on that.
Yeah. So I think typically in companies, right? So you have a narrative, you have a customer narrative. You know, like you say that, okay, this is the problem statement, this is what exactly they're going through. You know, this is what we are selling, and these are the benefits, value, and so on. But these are all things that have not necessarily come out of the marketer's own experience, right? So it is kind of the company, let's say maybe the leadership, the product, and mostly the leadership team comes up and says, this is what exactly we're doing. And that's good, that's a good starting point, right? But once you get into that, you need to create these multiple feedback loops that go into whether that narrative still resonates, is that actually working on the ground, etc., right? So that is where I think working with one-on-one with customers is really important. Because once the marketers think that, okay, this is what it is, and see, to a certain extent, if that exactly it works like gangbusters, then there's no problem, and there's no feedback needed. You can just build a unicorn and be happy. But normally that is not how it happens, right? So some of your campaigns work, many of them don't work. Then you try to figure out what am I missing here, and those reading in between the lines, right? So between, let's say, pain point one, value, benefit, reading in between the lines gives you the terminologies, as well as the motivation of building something and selling something to the customer. So I think yes, the highlights are good, but the real understanding comes from reading in between the lines, and that happens typically during one-on-one calls with customers.
And the reason why I asked you this, right, because before doing sales, I used to think I have a great understanding of the pain points. And then after doing sales, I'm like, maybe not as good as I thought, right? Like maybe that's a different experience for sure. And then yeah, that helps quite a bit. Awesome. I'll just maybe then. So Sanjeev basically said that, oh, maybe so one thing that he did was very interesting is every marketer was, I think that's like the first action item that we discussed till now. Like the marketing teams, we can make it mandatory for the marketing teams to listen to sales calls or even shadow a sales engineer. Um, like, was there to make it more actionable? Was there like a frequency? Was it like do it once someday, or what would you recommend, irrespective of what it was?
See, it should be part of induction to start with, right? Like you need to introduce them. This is an habit that's actually useful for them. And good marketers, most marketers worth their salt, will actually quickly hook onto that, right? They'll see the value in that because it is actually helping them to do better at their job. So first thing is to introduce them to it, and good marketers will latch onto it. So we made it as a process. You do it regularly, etc. But I've seen that good marketers, you don't need to force that on them. They will do it on their own. Once you bring that habit into the system, just bring it when they are into the team, right? It will naturally happen.
So just to add to that, I think there was at Exotel we did something where we would send a set of random snippets of certain calls. Again, sales calls in Exotel used to happen over Exotel, so the call recording would be available. So we would pick like X number of calls, and I think there was a group to which it was sent. Maybe not to everyone, but yeah, to at least all the ops and non-tech teams. I think it was sent. So those are some automations, for example, that you could do, which is, let's say, as something as simple as soon as a note goes into your CRM, that needs to kind of go to a channel where all the sales and marketing folks are there. As simple as that, right? So someone else is taking a call, they have a few line items over there. For a marketer to read that, it will either aid them in terms of reinforce their belief that they currently have, or it might give some data points so that they can reevaluate what the messaging that they're giving. So I think something as simple as sharing notes across Slack channels is an amazing way to start.
And just talking about like who does what then in an organization, right? So for example, setting something like this up, is it the product marketing team? Is it sales ops? Uh,
Yeah.
who's doing this?
So I'd say this falls under sales ops or RevOps, right? So because RevOps ultimately is kind of the glue that binds the GTM teams together, right? So and they're kind of responsible for creating processes and implementing them, feedback loops, etc. So I think it would be the sales ops or the RevOps folks who'll do this. But of course, see, the champion could be anyone, but typically it ends up being someone from the RevOps team.
Understood.
So it's also very related to the topic that you say, right? Like earlier, ops team was very siloed. There used to be a marketing ops team. There used to be a sales ops team. There used to be a customer success, right? Like every team had their own ops champion.
Yeah.
But they will try to optimize process for that silo, and that's exactly where this feedback loop doesn't happen. And now I think last few years RevOps as a field has picked up, so which sits across this entire customer journey, right? Like from marketing to sales to finance as well. So finance ops also comes into this. So without that, earlier I would say data was siloed. Now everyone's taking a more holistic approach to things and not keep it siloed, so that the feedback loop now works.
Yeah, that makes sense. The reason why I asked also, right? There's this very interesting concept, I think, Sangram, where he shared that instead of looking at sales, marketing, all of that, let's look at it and like do that, but also look at it as a go-to-market team, which consists of sales, marketing, and customer success. And then, so what you're saying essentially is could be someone who sort of figuring out what to share amongst everyone across the three teams, because insights are generated everywhere. That could be really interesting.
No, absolutely. I think there's no need or reason to not share this across, right? So these are all like typical conversations that happen. For example, the things around why the salesperson needs to be diligent enough and ensure that things are filled up in the CRM, right? So that becomes apparent to them when they understand what a marketing team needs in order to now set their next campaign. Like they're probably understanding what is the ROI for a particular campaign. Did we get enough leads? And for that, for example, what is the industry vertical that the customer was from? How did we get that customer? So there are some of these things that may have to be entered by the sales rep. And if they also kind of get that feeling that if we do this well, it adds that much more value to the org in on the whole. So all for sharing data across the org, especially people who work in the GTM team.
Got it. How does this, and this is going to be a more direct question, right? Like, because how can this work with the kind of KPIs people have right now, right? Because most probably, like, no one is going to really change the KPI of the sales ops team, saying that, hey, now marketing team's narrative is now your like why would someone care if it's not there? How do you even make this happen from
So
that perspective?
So I get reminded of this famous quote. Maybe I'm misquoting it, but the rough thing is, I think Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett, they say that show me the incentives, I'll tell you how the team is performing, right? So essentially, I think it comes down to really well crafted incentive structure as well, right? So because if someone thinks that they're doing it for someone else's sake, or it's a chore, it probably is not going to get done, because there are 1,000 other things that people need to focus on. So I think it becomes important to bring let's say data hygiene to begin with, things like CRM hygiene, or getting notes across into all the relevant places, right? So all of this should be part of someone's OKRs, or KRAs or KPIs, however people define it, right? So I think it needs to be it is probably looked at as a fringe element, but it needs to kind of be part of someone's overall goal structure, so that people actually make efforts towards it. So at least with sales, for example, while I was running the sales org, I tried different things to improve the CRM hygiene. For example, we used to do carrot and stick kind of an approach. We had like a small percentage of their incentives and variable pay based on the data sanity that they have, right? So then I used to say during my let's say sales pipeline review meetings. If it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen, right? So these are all things, again, things that kind of are driven from the top, and they end up also being incentivized or disincentivized. So I think that's, in my mind, that's the best way to go, because I think this helps everyone do their job better, but typically incentives work.
The other thing is also to understand the psyche of people, right? Like I'll give a couple of examples of the reverse data flow, like from marketing to sales. Kind of obvious, right? Data flows from here to there. So for marketing team wanted to know, why did it, what is the use case of a customer? There are different customers that are buying the product. What is the use case of a customer? So there was a time when this is not filled in exactly, because that's useful for the marketing team to run their campaigns, etc., right? So we automated this. I think Karthik did this automation. So the automation was simple as push, whenever a deal is won, push this information on a public Slack channel or a channel where the entire company is there as a celebration. And in that, just mention the use case for which the customer was buying us, right? So first thing, like psychologically, you are actually appreciating the AE for closing a deal. And in that, you're also pushing the slight nudge saying that, hey, this information is useful for the entire company, right? So in that context, this was actually a super hit automation, because now everyone started filling this, right? Like, and even if this is not filled in, right there in Slack, people reply saying that, hey, the use case for this was so and so. So that habit started coming in. The second thing that we realized was, so the marketing team will use a lot of, say, website, customer enrichment tools, website tracking tools, and there's so much information of how a customer came into the funnel, what is their use case, what is their industry, and you'll ask the sales team, hey, why are you not using this data? Right? Why? This is so much data that is there that we have collected. You could use this to improve your conversion rate. Like, that sounds very obvious, but there was a standard problem, right? How many tools will they use? This data is in some other marketing tool. You're asking them to go log in to a different tool to get this information. So the simplest hack was to push that into places where they work, right? If there are meetings, it should be available in meetings. If they're on Slack channels, it should be available there. Or if they're using the CRM, it should be there, right? Like these integrations became a simple tool, because you're otherwise asking them to do a behavioral change that is not in their flow of day-to-day activities. So these things do matter. It's just not the KPI, right? Like psychologically thinking about how people work, what is their motivation, is also crucial to implement these processes.
Yeah. Just to add another example, right? So sales using data from the marketing tools. So like he said, things like what are the pages that the customer actually visited, right? So that might give us a good idea. As a salesperson, I probably don't need to spend too much time talking about things that they don't care. I can just focus my time on the stuff that they already visited and they care, right? So these are all things that help the salesperson actually do their job better. So I think it just needs like a couple of months of usage for them to realize that this is a gold mine, and I should actually, in every call, this is what I should be doing, right? And similarly, I think both from an ops as well as enablement perspective, there needs to be some kind of effort to set the right material so that people, the sales reps, can use it. So I think because this is something that actually aids the sales reps in terms of closing faster and closing more deals. There's no one who will say, I don't want to use this data. I think you just have to provide it in a easily digestible fashion.
I'll quickly just summarize a few different things that I heard, right? Just because some things you said were extremely actionable. I just want to maybe revise those ones.
Sure.
And also the benefits, right? So which are just, I think and also some challenges that I still see to it. And then if we have any follow-up discussions, we can have that, right? So first things, and I have my notes as I'm looking down, but like the benefits, right? Like the 4 benefits that stood out to me were better positioning, and narrative across the company, especially for marketing, because I think more like sales is like one-to-one, and marketing can really go to one-to-many, and if you mess up the narrative there, it makes a difference. Second one is like the very similar, but the language that people use, that it affects all of your ads close rates. We've seen sometimes for some of our clients, right, using a simple change in words, like we use breeze or we use chaos, right? Like just because we started using this one word, which is not even technical, not about the industry, we started using it, and suddenly we saw increasing conversion rates. So insights like that can come in. Third
Yeah.
is like there's an experiencing the pain points when sort of, let's say, when you say that, oh, this is a problem, there could be layers to a problem. So maybe even being able to see those layers. For example, for us, right, a lot of customers come to us saying that, hey, there's we want to scale our company, but then, or we want to generate revenue, right? So but why do you want to generate revenue? Do you want to go to a new market? Do you want to do all of that? And if my I think I would not have a lot of those insights unless I would be doing sales. Like, why do you want to generate revenue? And then the last thing that popped out to me, and please add if I miss something, is like the sales close rates. Because if
Yeah.
sales conversely is using marketing insights, then sales should also be able to close things much faster. Did I miss something? Do you want to add something very important?
No, I think you kind of captured that. Just a couple of things. I think it needs to be typically someone's responsibility, someone who works with the GTM team, which like we said, probably is RevOps. So that they can look at this holistically. What tends to happen is when separate teams follow their own stack, they tend to become very siloed. So someone who needs to cut across the orgs to look at this and ensure that the feedback loops are properly set up. So that's probably an actionable as well.
Yeah, I'll just add like all the actionable stuff. By the way, I really like how a lot of the things we went into the depth of how to actually implement it. Because earlier I was like, yeah, I mean, cool. But now I'm thinking, okay, what can I actually implement at Spear Growth? Versus, okay, that sounds nice. Right. So one was making listening to sales calls mandatory. I think that was a huge thing. I am already thinking of maybe who can help us figure out what sales calls, making a repository of those, giving it to our marketing team to understand our customers better. Because even though in Saviyard we have you can call it a marketing team, but customer team as well, because that's a service.
Right.
So
Right.
I think it'll be good for my team to understand our
No,
customers better. Um, Second is sending sales snippets. That could also be really, really interesting. Um, and the one thing that I really liked in sending this is if we are winning a customer, we do this. We have a wins channel. We send all our companies wins in that. Maybe just adding why or the context of wins, not only to that one team, but to the entire organization. I think that
Yeah.
could be huge. Um, and then a lot of these are derivative. One more is that just changing the sales incentives, maybe. For example, even the way you speak with your sales team, right? Like the line you said, if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. Like
Yeah.
the carrot and sticks, that could be the stick. There could also be like maybe aligning uh, their incentives, bonuses to hygiene. Um, and finally, I think this can all be, and that's like the one thing I really want to go deeper into. You've mentioned a lot of automations that can help do these things. Can you sort of maybe go into like a few very, very crucial automations that can be used to actually do this, so that it's not like just adding work to people, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, couple of things that I can that we kind of already touched upon, which I think is probably straightforward using multiple tools, and some tools like Luru, which are able to send your meeting notes into a Slack channel, right? So this is a this is something that has been super useful for us in the past at Exotel, and also even at Luru, for example. We make it a point to ensure that the automation of sending notes to a channel happens, right? So it's a straightforward thing, simple thing, but just opening up, because even everyone probably has some form of fashion they're able to look into their HubSpot or Salesforce, right? But nobody does it. So you need to kind of deliver it to people wherever they are, in this case like a Slack channel. So I think I would say that is one thing to start with. The other couple of things, like Sanjeeth mentioned, are whenever there are deals that go into certain stages, right? So let's say you have a qualified deal, and you want to now send things like, okay, there's a deal that is qualified and it has taken really a very short span of time. Let's say your average deal qualification time takes X number of days or months, and this has happened in like less than that, right? So this is very useful information for the marketing team, which you can automate to say, when a deal reaches this qualified stage, or let's say a POC stage, you can kind of define it whichever way you want. Once it enters a certain stage, if it is done really well, which means this is the kind of lead or a new customer that we need as a marketing team, which means they can focus on what are what is the cohort of customers that they should be looking at, so that my sales cycle becomes lesser, so that our win rate ultimately goes up, right? So you could now send this feedback loop again into a Slack channel. This could be over email, for example. You can automate some of this. The sales cycle, again in this case the qualification cycle, can be automated, and you can push it to your team. And anything that is done really well or not well, especially those things will catch the eye, and they can understand if there is more meat into it from a marketing team's perspective.
One nice automation by our customers that I like is if there is a deal from a specific industry, they have set up an automation which will nudge the AI to say, hey, here are case studies from this industry. These are previous customers from this industry who we have as our clients. You can use them, right? Like in your meetings. I thought that's a very cool way of educating an AI through their, like, it's not just during their induction one time, right? This becomes like a guidance through their lifetime. And I thought that was a really cool automation that they thought about.
Yeah. No, I think sorry.
Oh no, please go ahead.
So apart from that, I think when it comes to marketing material itself, so I think that becomes very useful, right? So there are teams where I know they mention that there shouldn't be any email without some kind of proper material going out, right? So for example, an email to a customer saying, hey, I'm just following up, it is obviously a follow-up, but you're not necessarily adding much value there. So providing the material, which is where something like what Sanjeeth said becomes very, very useful, right? So where you are able to now provide the material at the right time, and they're able to use it.
No, this was very helpful. Throughout the time, I was like either making notes, or I was thinking, okay, how can I implement this? So that I think was really, really helpful to me. Since you are not doing it yourself, I'll tell everyone that, dude, like, if you're watching this, use Luru. It's really good. I used it once during me trying to sell to them, and then I've used it on every other sales call to actually take notes. It's actually a really, really useful tool. I'm sure, and I think you have a very generous free tier.
That's right.
Anyone who wants to just go ahead and give it a shot, it's not going to take anything at all, honestly, to just try it out. So you should definitely try it out. On your behalf, I have
thanks for the plug, Ishan.
Awesome. I think that's all. I think we're already a little above time, but I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I actually have 2 pages of notes on stuff that I can implement at Spear Growth. It'll be if there's anything that maybe people can also implement, and you have any thoughts, open in the comments. That'll be really fun. Good. Okay. Again, thanks, Sanjeeth.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having us on this show, Ishan. So just one last thing, apart from what Ishan mentioned, a bunch of things can be automated using workflows, and happy to, if anyone is interested, please let us know in the comments, and happy to help you out.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.